Hello everyone, it's Liz, and I am back here again to give a review of chapters 112 and 113 of Seraph of the End. Now, I was going to just do a review of 112, and I actually had that recorded, but I got way too angry and emotional, so I decided not to post it. So instead, now that I've calmed down, I've read 113, and I've reflected, I am going to give a hopefully calmer review of both chapters. I have some iced tea with me, just in case, to hopefully keep me calm. So first, a brief summary, or as brief as I can make it. So, starting in chapter 112, we get back to the fight between you and Guren. In the midst of said fight, Mika discovers that he is being poisoned when their blades cross, and he lets you know. He's like, hey, so every time you cross blades, I'm getting poisoned. And he's like, okay, I gotta avoid that somehow. So his solution, I will always find this funny, so his solution is to, one, block Guren's sword with his arm, and then he headbutts him. And that's such a you thing to do, headbutt somebody instead of using his sword. But from there, as they continue fighting, we get sent into Guren's mind space, where he is having a conversation with Mahiru, and during said conversation, he is contemplating throwing in the towel, which I did not want, like, at all, and I'll get back to that later. And Mahiru is just like, well, that's just kind of stupid. If we want to win, we want to win. And Guren's going on like, well, it's wrong to play dirty, which kind of is coming out of nowhere, because since when has Guren cared about whether he's playing dirty or not? Maybe it's because he's fighting against you, but since when has that mattered? I don't know. But even though Mahiru's insisting that, hey, they should win, Guren's still the one in control, so he's like, well, I'm still gonna throw in the towel. So Mahiru throws this question at him. She's like, does that mean you're going to accept his feelings? Are you going to lean on him? Because you mentioned earlier that he wants to beat Guren so that he can gain Guren's respect and that Guren can lean on him. And honestly, that just made me feel for you. Because he just wants Guren's respect. He wants Guren to be able to rely on him, and even though Guren doesn't really deserve it, I understand where he was coming from, because that's his dad. That's his father, the man that has raised him and has kinda been reliable enough for you to lean on, and he wants Guren to be able to do the same to him. He wants Guren to trust him, and I get that. And, you know, Guren's response to Mahiru's question, he's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter anyway, though, because it cuts back and shows that Yu has won, but it's because that Guren threw in the towel. Now, I wasn't exactly happy about this. I wanted Yu to win of his own merits. I wanted him and Mika to work together and beat Guren when he's fighting at his hardest. Because to me, this seems like it would symbolize Yu breaking away from Guren's control, which I feel like with how it ended with 111 is where the story was going. It's felt like that Yu has been going through this arc of slowly breaking away from Guren's control and becoming his own person, and just not constantly listening to what Guren is saying, but 112 just kind of throws that in the trash. Because not only did Yu win because Guren decided to let him win, which again just puts him more under Guren's control, but he later goes and forgives him. Once Guren has been defeated, Yu questions him. He's like, did you kill my family? And Guren responds honestly. He's like, yes. And Yu says he forgives him, which, granted, at the time I didn't really notice this, or I ignored it, but Yu kind of has a second of, like, contemplation. Like, he's visibly upset at this, and he seems to kind of think about it for a moment, rather than just impulsively being like, oh, I forgive you, which may mean something, and I'll get back to this later when going over 113. But at the time, this made me really mad, especially when later the rest of the squad comes over and surrounds Guren, and in this sort of forgiveness circle where they all forgive him, and at the time I said, and I quote, this scene makes me want to vomit, because Guren has done nothing to earn the squad's forgiveness or the reader's forgiveness. He's just done a whole bunch of horrible things for a reason that he's not telling anyone. And he has yet to face any sort of consequence or repent for any of his actions, and yet he is being painted as the good guy who has done no wrong, and we're supposed to just kind of be on board with it and be like, okay. I'm not. This forgiveness feels unearned, which thankfully later on it seems Kamizuki hasn't fully forgiven him, but we'll get back to that. Thankfully, in this chapter, we are jumping over to Cruel and Farid, and there's a bit of comedy between them where Farid is just like, oh, they're a sweet family, does that mean we're family, Cruelty? And Cruel literally is just like, shut up before I kill you. And of course Farid doesn't know how to take a hand, so he just keeps pushing, and Cruel decapitates him. I'm noticing there's a pattern of just Farid constantly getting dismembered, usually by Cruel. I'm here for it. I am here for Farid constantly getting dismembered. I both love and hate that bastard, and so seeing him getting dismembered is very cathartic. But anyways, once the whole forgiveness circle is up, Yu demands answers. And I thought that the next chapter was going to give us those answers. It doesn't. Not really. So starting with 113, we start with Shikama Doji and Ancient Greece Yu. Now, I've never brought this up before, but Ancient Greece Yu, he's adorable, yes, but he doesn't really feel like an actual person. Of course, we know that he's actually just a clone, but there's something more to that. Like, I feel like he's just sort of this fragment. I don't really know how to explain. Like, obviously, for someone to be able to just be cloned like that, obviously they can't have, like, a whole soul, right? It wouldn't be that easy otherwise. So I'm thinking maybe his soul is fragmented somehow. Like, he's not a full soul, because he doesn't seem like his own person. Like, he just kind of seems like generic happy child without any real personality. I hate saying that because he's so cute, and it's so nice seeing you that happy for once. But that's just how it is. This point seems to be kind of further proven later on in their interaction, and I'll get back to that. But anyways, we are seeing Shikama Doji and Yu talking over the first Mikaela, Shikama Doji's son. And of course Yu's going on and on trying to get Mika to wake up in the most adorable way ever. Shikama comes over and he's like, oh, are you saying bye Mika again? And Yu's like, yep, I'm waiting for him to wake up. And Shikama's like, well, there's a bit of a problem with that. He's dead. And we actually see emotion on Shikama's face, and this honestly kind of proves my theory back from my last review where I said that Shikama just wants his son back. Like, his son was tragically killed in all of this. I don't think he really has this big, overarching, bigger goal. Like, there may be a bit of a bigger goal, but at the core of it, he just wants his son back, and he's willing to go to any length to get him back, as he later says in this chapter, where he says there aren't enough sacrifices yet to bring him back. He mentions this after Yu asks if he can just wake Mika up with a kiss, like in those fairy tales, which, that was, one, adorable, and two, I thought it was interesting that fairy tales were brought up. Shikama kind of adds on to this, and he says he wishes it were that simple. But then he also goes on to talk about how all throughout history, no matter the culture, the fairy tales always seem to be the same. And he mentions maybe it's because of the genders. Now, at first I didn't quite understand this, but I'm thinking it has to do with the main relationships of the characters and how it's always a man and a woman. Because he also mentions that Mika, when Yu asks if he's the prince and Mika's the princess, he says that they don't really have traditional genders like humans do, so he wouldn't know if Mika would make a proper princess. And we've seen this term princess thrown around multiple times rather casually by Farid. I didn't think much of it at the time, but this could just be another case of Farid hinting at something that he knows about, but we don't. Anyways, when Shikama mentioned this, I wonder if we're meant to kind of think about Yu and Mika's relationship and how it kind of differentiates from the norm. I'm probably looking way too into this, but that's kind of what it feels like. Like we're supposed to kind of think of them differently. But it also could be retconned by the whole, we don't have genders like humans do. Which honestly, that's kind of interesting if I think about it. Because our Mika that we've seen, he's male. He's very masculine. Like, yes, he is very pretty. He's very pretty for a guy, but he is masculine. He is male from what we've seen. But the first Mikaela and Shikama Doji, while they do seem physically male, I've never really gotten distinctly male vibes from them. They've always sort of given more androgynous or genderless vibes, and I'm wondering if that's what Shikama's talking about. I kind of see it. Anyways, I'm going way off on a tangent here about something that I probably should not be going way off on a tangent here. I'm supposed to be talking about a summary. Anyways, after the whole sacrifice talk, he was just like, sacrifice? What does that mean? And Shikama just gets this kind of sinister look on his face, and he's like, maybe I'll tell you in a fairy tale. Let's bring back Mikaela together. And that kind of gives me a sense of foreboding, because while yes, I do want to see the first Mikaela revived, I think that would be very interesting, I'm very afraid of what the cost of that might be. My current theory is that Shikama has been cloning tons of Yus and tons of Mikas, trying to make the perfect souls for them. Like, he's trying to get the perfect iteration of Mika and the perfect iteration of Yu. And I think they're supposed to, like, combine somehow. And maybe they combine to fully make the actual Mikaela. Like, their souls are bound together somehow. This theory is supported by Yu claiming that he can hear Mika talking to him despite him being dead. Shikama's surprised by this, and he's like, he doesn't talk to me, his own father. At first he doesn't even believe him. But Yu's just like, no, he does. I just gotta put my ear up to his coffin, and I just gotta make sure I actually hear what he says. I don't want to miss anything. And it's a really cute moment, but it also gave me a bad feeling. So perhaps my theory of them having to combine some way to form the first Mikaela's soul may have some merit. I'm not the only one that has this train of thought. I've seen other people have this train of thought. But anyways, we move on from that back to the present, where the squad is in the truck and everyone's just driving along. And we still haven't gotten any sort of explanation. Yu, of course, is still demanding answers. He's like, come on, Guren, tell us. Guren's constantly dodging, where he's just like, it would take too long to explain, I need to show you something, yada yada. But you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. He's like, no, explain now, in one sentence, in one word, yada yada. And Guren just keeps deflecting. But something else happens, and it was quite refreshing to see. Kamizuki actually speaks up. He says that he's been keeping his mouth shut for a long time. You know, Guren killed his sister, but despite that, he's been keeping his mouth shut, but he's done keeping his mouth shut, and he wants to know answers. So that makes me think that his little forgiveness from the last chapter wasn't quite as genuine. Like, I'm thinking that maybe he hasn't fully forgiven Guren, which I'm hoping he hasn't, because he looks pissed when he's saying this. Yoichi has to hold him back from doing what? I don't know, but he has to hold him back. Yoichi actually chimes in as well, and he's like, Guren, I would like to know if you were in fact involved with my sister's death. Please tell me. And it's oddly polite, but I feel like that's Yoichi's darker side coming out, just in a more subtle way. Because we've seen Yoichi's darker side, and while he's usually like more bold and demanding, like we see how he interacts with Gekuing that one time, I feel like this is kind of that darker side peeking out. Of course, Guren just keeps deflecting, and he's just like, I'm going to bring y'all's family back, so sit down and shut up. But Mika, the real MVP, he speaks up and he's like, but at what price? When you brought back your squad, it annihilated the entire world, and that was just 7 people. What's the price going to be for resurrecting the whole world, which was Guren's goal? That's when Yu cuts in, and he also joins in on the interrogating of Guren. At first when I was reading this, I thought it was Yu not listening to Mika again, because remember, last review I said I thought Yu learned his lesson after Mika died, that he needs to listen to Mika more. At first I thought that he had not learned anything at all, and he was just ignoring Mika's concerns again. But he places his hand on Mika's shoulder, kind of in a I got this kind of way. And I'm thinking, like, with the look on Mika's face, he has an odd look on his face. And I'm thinking maybe you telepathically told him, like, what he was doing. Because remember, Mika can read Yu's mind. Shinoa then steps in, and she just kind of gives us a brief overview of everything. But then she starts saying how it was just all of Shikama's plan and it wasn't actually Guren's fault. While I felt for Shinua while she was saying this, it just kind of made me angry again because it seemed that Guren just kept dodging responsibility. In this chapter, he was trying to put the responsibility on himself, almost painting himself as a martyr. Like, this chapter was trying to paint Guren as a martyr. Didn't appreciate that. But Shinua just kept going on and on and on. And she ended up actually saying that it was partially her fault because she benefited from what Guren was doing, so she felt she was to blame. And we actually see some good emotion from Shinua. Like, this is the one part of the chapter I actually really like. We actually see Shinua crying, and while I hate to see her upset, and when I was reading it, I was like, no, Shinua, please, baby, don't cry. I actually really like seeing that emotion from Shinua, because if we think about it, we haven't really seen a big emotional response like that from Shinua, ever. Because she's had to keep her emotions, like, reined in. She had to keep the walls around her heart really high, as she says. So we don't really see an emotional reaction like this, ever. Thankfully, Yu cuts in and he's like, no. Enough of that, enough of the, no, it's my fault bullshit, it's getting us nowhere. Which, thank you, Yu. It wasn't getting us anywhere. I still wish Guren had some accountability, but Shinua starting to say that it was her fault was not getting us anywhere. The blame game was not getting us anywhere. We need to get back on topic. Mika even says, let's get back on topic. After yet another family circle. We have yet another circle of, we're family and we need to stay together. We need to stick together till the end. They even try to invite Mika into the circle and Mika's like, why are you inviting me here? They even try to invite Cruel to the circle and Cruel's like, I'm not your family. But Mahir comes over without really any prompting and it is sweet. Again, like last chapter, the whole forgiving Guren scene was really sweet. Except it felt unearned. It's like this again. It's a really sweet scene, but it feels unearned. Thankfully, it doesn't stick around too long because Mika cuts in with like, hey, let's get back on topic. We need to continue talking about this. Don't think you can get out of this one, Guren. So then Mika goes on to theorize that if they take control of the Seraph, they can possibly dodge the whole apocalypse happening if they break the taboo of bringing people back to life. But then Guren's just like, nah, it's not that simple. How he knows that? I don't fucking know. But he knows that. And he's like, if we were to attempt to do that, the price would be even bigger. And everyone's like, well, what should we do then? And so they once again demand answers, and that's where the chapter leaves off. I'm not gonna lie, this really feels dragged out. I just want to know what the grand plan of bullshit is. I really want to know. But it just keeps getting dragged on and on and on and on. And it's just really aggravating me, along with the blatant Guren favoritism. Last video I recorded and didn't post, I went on and on and on about how Kagami obviously favors Guren and wants us to constantly be on his side without giving him actual consequences for his actions. I'm not going to do that ramble again, because I feel like that would just be wasting everyone's time. But the general consensus of my thoughts were, I think Kagami is very much favoring Guren, so he's trying to make us, the readers, forgive him when he earned no forgiveness from us. And I thought it was poor writing, because while I do understand that you have a character that you really love and you want everyone else to love them, that's not how you go about it. And then I went on to say that if I were in Kagami's shoes, I would have Guren be honest about what he's done, have the squad distrust him, learn about the plan, and decide whether they're going to continue with it or not. But either way, Guren's not in charge anymore, and then maybe after a significant amount of time, they start to forgive him. That's how I would write it, and that's essentially what my thoughts were. But yeah, we learned both nothing and yet a lot during these two chapters at the same time. Mainly we learned stuff at the beginning, which I already previously covered. So I don't know what we're going to get next chapter. I'm seriously hoping that we are going to get an explanation, because that's honestly what I'm sticking around for. I'm sticking around for the explanation of the grand plan of bullshit, as well as Mika and Yu's ending happiness. I want them to be happy in the end. Like, I love a majority of the other characters, I do, but Mika and you are the main reason I'm sticking around, along with trying to figure out what the grand plan of bullshit is. It's like, I'm genuinely worried about where this story is gonna go, because I have no idea the direction it's taking. But I will continue to stick around and kind of see how it goes. I'm hoping that chapter 114 will have a more positive video from me, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in it. But anyways, before this video gets too long, that's essentially my thoughts on the matter. I'm hoping that I won't be as upset next chapter, but again, I don't know. Anywho, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.